3 true unnerving camping alone at night horror stories. Whispers in the pines. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dense pines of Blackwood Forest. Jack had always sought solace in the wilderness, the kind of peace only found in nature's embrace. After weeks of monotonous work, he had decided to escape for a solo camping trip, a chance to reconnect with himself. He parked his old Jeep at the trailhead, packed his gear, and set off into the towering trees, feeling the weight of the world lift with each step. As he hiked deeper into the forest, the sounds of civilization faded away. The rustle of leaves, the chirping of crickets, and the occasional call of a distant bird filled the air. He found a clearing by a small creek, perfect for setting up camp. The campsite was idyllic, the gentle murmur of the water was soothing, and the soft moss underfoot made for a comfortable spot. Pitch his tent. Jack unloaded his gear, setting up the tent and arranging his supplies. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. He lit a small fire, the flames dancing and crackling, providing warmth against the encroaching chill. As darkness fell, the forest transformed. The moon cast a silvery glow, illuminating the pines, which now looked like looming specters in the night. Sitting by the fire, Jack felt a sense of peace wash over him. He pulled out a book, the flickering light casting shadows that danced across the pages. But, as he read, he began to notice a faint sound, almost like whispers carried by the wind. At first, he brushed it off as the wind rustling through the trees. But the whispers persisted, growing clearer, almost as if they were calling his name. Curiosity piqued, Jack set his book aside and stood up, straining to listen. "Hello," he called, half expecting an answer. The only reply was the rustle of leaves, and he chuckled nervously to himself. Maybe he was just tired, his mind playing tricks in the solitude of the forest. He decided to ignore it, retreating back to his fire. As the hours passed, the whispers seemed to intensify, swirling around him, like a sinister lullaby. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced around the clearing, the shadows shifting in the flickering firelight, and tried to convince himself it was just the ambience of the street. But the feeling persisted, heavy and uncomfortable. Determined to shake off the unease, Jack decided to explore a little. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped away from the fire's glow. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the gnarled roots and underbrush. He wandered a short distance from his campsite, the whispers now louder, more insistent. He felt an inexplicable pull towards the heart of the woods. As he walked, he came across an old campsite, the remnants of a fire pit surrounded by fallen branches. It looked abandoned, the ground littered with decaying leaves and forgotten belongings. Curiosity drew him closer, and he inspected the site. Tattered remnants of a tent lay buried under foliage, and nearby, he spotted a faded backpack. His heart raced as he rifled through it, uncovering a journal. The pages were yellowed, the ink smudged and barely legible. "Help us," one entry read, scratched hastily. "The whispers are everywhere. We shouldn't have come here." Jack felt a chill crawl up his spine. The further he read, the more unsettled he became. The last entry was a frantic scrawl, "They are watching us. We can stay. Get out." His hands trembled as he closed the journal. He glanced around, the whispers now a cacophony in his ears. Panic began to rise within him. He turned to leave but stumbled over a root, falling to the ground. As he pushed himself up, a cold wind swept through the trees, carrying with it a chilling laugh that echoed through the clearing. Heart pounding, Jack sprinted back to his campsite, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He fumbled with his flashlight, the beam flickering as he frantically scanned the area. The whispers turned into a haunting melody, a chorus of voices beckoning him. He stumbled into the circle of light cast by the fire, desperately trying to gather his thoughts. Jack sat on a log, the warmth of the flames doing little to ease his growing fear. The forest was alive with sounds, but the whispers drowned everything out. He thought of packing up and leaving, but something rooted him to the spot. It was as if the forest had wrapped its tendrils around him, refusing to let him go. Time slipped away as he sat there, fear coiling tighter around his heart. Finally, as the moon reached its zenith, the whispers faded into silence. A deep stillness enveloped the forest, and for a moment, Jack thought he might be safe. But then, he heard it, a soft, breathy voice right next to him. "Help us." He spun around, but there was no one there. The forest was empty, yet he felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him. He grabbed his backpack, adrenaline spurring him to action. He needed to get out, now. As he packed, he glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see the shadowy figure from the abandoned campsite lurking behind a tree. With his gear hastily ved into his pack, Jack made for the trail. The moonlight guided his way, but the forest felt alive, every rustle and snap echoing in his ears. The whispers returned, softer now but still haunting, circling around him. As he hurried down the path, he stumbled through the underbrush, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Just as he thought he had lost them, he heard the chilling laughter again, closer this time, mingling with the whispers. Panic surged, and he broke into a full sprint, heart racing, adrenaline propelling him forward. As he ran, branches clawed at his skin, but he pressed on, desperate to escape the unseen horror. The path twisted and turned, each shadow an enemy, each whisper a taunt. Finally, he burst through the trees, and into the clearing where he had parked his jeep. He fumbled with his keys, hands shaking as he unlocked the door and jumped inside. As he sped away, the forest receded in the rearview mirror. But the whispers lingered in his mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lay within Blackwood Forest. He vowed never to return, yet deep down, he knew. The whispers would follow him, an echo of his fear forever etched in his memory. The shadowed figure. Sarah had always cherished the idea of solo camping, a chance to immerse herself in nature away from the chaos of everyday life. This weekend, she decided to escape to Cedar Hollow, a secluded spot nestled deep within the forest. The journey to the campsite was a serene drive, towering trees lining the road and the soft sounds of nature filling the air. As she parked her car and stepped into the woods, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Setting up her tent in a small clearing, Sarah quickly arranged her gear. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting warm hues of orange and gold through the trees. Once her campsite was ready, she gathered firewood and lit a small fire. The flames crackled and danced, casting flickering shadows that played across the ground. The warm glow felt comforting as she settled onto a log, enjoying the solitude and beauty around her. As darkness enveloped the forest, Sarah pulled out a book to pass the time. The quiet was punctuated only by the occasional hoot of an owl and the rustling of leaves. But then, something caught her attention. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow darting between the trees. Dismissing it as a trick of the light, she returned to her book. But the feeling of being watched began to creep in, an unsettling sensation that gnawed at her insides. She shook her head, trying to rid herself of the unease. Just then, she heard it, a soft, almost childlike giggle echoing through the trees. Heart racing, she set her book aside and stood up, shining her flashlight toward the sound. "Hello," she called, her voice shaky in the stillness. There was no response, just the whisper of the wind through the branches. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine, but told herself it was just her imagination. She took a deep breath, determined to enjoy her night. As the hours passed, the atmosphere grew heavier. The moon hung high, illuminating the clearing, yet shadows loomed larger, stretching toward her as if they had a life of their own. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The laughter returned, clearer this time, echoing through the darkness. It was unsettling, a high-pitched sound that seemed to bounce around her. Trying to calm her nerves, Sarah stood up and walked toward the tree line. The forest was thick, shadows clinging to every trunk. She called out again, "Is anyone there?" The only reply was the rustling of leaves. Just as she turned to go back to the fire, she caught a glimpse of something, an elongated figure moving silently among the trees. Her heart pounded as she stepped back, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The figure was tall and thin, its features obscured by the darkness. Panic surged through her, and she turned to run. But the forest had shifted, the trees felt like they were closing in around her, blocking her escape. Breathing heavily, Sarah dashed back to her tent, fear clawing at her. She fumbled with the zipper, her hands shaking. As she hurried inside, she felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. The laughter echoed outside, mingling with the rustling leaves. The sound grew louder, more menacing, and she pressed her hands over her ears, trying to block it out. The night stretched on in torment. The figure circled her tent, the laughter morphing into a haunting melody. "Help us," it whispered, a voice both eerie and pleading. Sarah's heart raced, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. But the weight of fear anchored her in place. Finally, as dawn approached, the laughter subsided, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. With a heavy heart, Sarah unzipped the tent and peered out into the dim light. The clearing was empty, the estate still and quiet, but the air was thick with tension. She packed her belongings quickly, glancing over her shoulder, half expecting the figure to appear. As she drove away from Cedar Hollow, the shadows receded in the rearview mirror, but the chilling laughter lingered in her mind. She had always loved the thrill of solo camping, but this experience had left her shaken. The forest held its secrets close, and she knew she would never return to that haunted place. Lost and found. The morning sun rose lazily over the horizon as Alex prepared for his day hike. The vibrant greens of the forest beckoned him, promising adventure and tranquility. He parked his car at the trailhead, shouldering his backpack filled with essentials, water, snacks, and a trusty flashlight. He had heard tales of the beauty that lay within the depths of the woods, and he was eager to explore. As he hiked along the winding trail, the sounds of nature enveloped him, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the distant gurgle of a creek. The world around him felt alive, vibrant with energy. However, as he ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. The sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows that danced along the forest floor. After a couple of hours of hiking, Alex stumbled upon a small clearing, perfect for a quick break. He sat down on a fallen log, taking a moment to enjoy the peace. As he munched on a granola bar, he noticed the surroundings becoming unnaturally quiet. The chirping of birds faded away, replaced by an unsettling stillness that sent a shiver down his spine. Deciding to brush off the eerie feeling, he continued his hike, determined to reach a viewpoint he had read about. But as he trekked onward, he soon realized he had lost track of time and his sense of direction. Panic began to bubble beneath the surface as he glanced around, trying to recognize the path he had taken. The trees loomed taller, their trunks appearing more menacing in the dim light. Frustration mounting, Alex decided to head back to the clearing where he had rested, hoping to find his bearings. However, as he turned to retrace his steps, he noticed something strange. The trail he thought he had followed now looked unfamiliar. The trees seemed to shift, their branches intertwining in a way that felt unnatural. Pushing through the underbrush, Alex stumbled upon a dilapidated campsite. Tattered tents lay scattered around, remnants of a life once vibrant now abandoned. Curiosity piqued, he approached the site, an uneasy feeling gnawing in his stomach. What had happened here? He stepped cautiously among the ruins, his flashlight illuminating the eerie scene. As he explored, he found an old backpack lying in the dirt. Hesitant but driven by curiosity, he unzipped it and rifled through its contents. Inside, he discovered a journal, its pages yellowed and defrayed. The entries were frantic, the handwriting jagged and rushed. "We shouldn't have come here," one entry read. "The whispers, they are everywhere. They leave us alone." A chill ran down his spine as he flipped through the pages, his heart racing. The last entry sent a wave of dread over him. "They are watching. If you find this, turn back. Dawn, stay." Alex's instinct screamed at him to flee. He turned to leave the campsite, but as he stepped back into the trees, he felt a chill envelop him. The air grew heavy, thick with an oppressive silence. Just as he began to walk away, he heard it, a low whisper, echoing through the trees. "Help us!" Panic surged through him, and he sprinted back toward the path. The whispers followed, growing louder, more insistent. "Help us! Help us!" The words twisted in his mind, clawing at his sanity. He glanced back, and to his horror, he saw a figure emerging from the shadows, its form shrouded in darkness. The figure was tall and thin, with hollow eyes that seemed to draw in the light. Its mouth moved soundlessly, as if calling out to him. Alex's heart raced as he turned and ran, branches scratching at his arms as he pushed through the underbrush. The whispers grew into a cacophony, an unrelenting chorus of despair, that echoed around him. Just when he thought he could escape, he stumbled over a root and fell to the ground. The figure loomed closer, its presence cold and suffocating. Alex scrambled to his feet, pushing himself to run faster, the forest around him, a blur of shadows and fear. Finally, he broke through the trees and onto the main trail. Gasping for breath, he glanced back, half expecting the figure to emerge from the shadows. But the forest was still, the whispers fading into the distance. He stumbled along the path, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he made his way back to his car. When he reached the vehicle, he fumbled with the keys, hands shaking as he unlocked the door and jumped inside. As he drove away, he glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure watching him. The woods receded, but the whispers lingered in his mind, an echo of terror etched into his memory. As he pulled onto the highway, Alex knew he would never return to that cursed place. The forest held its secrets close, and he had barely escaped its clutches. The echoes of despair would follow him, haunting his thoughts, as a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the wilderness.